held captive media fans. Today we're going to talk about something that isn't comic book related. Now that's fucking crazy. So there's been some recent news. I'm just going to go ahead and give you this article from MovieWeb, and you guys can tell me what you think. While discussing Blumhouse's new movie, The Black Phone, Blum was asked about how he has made clear he wants the rights to the horror movie franchise, A Nightmare on Elm Street. He says, and I quote, "I really do. On the back of this, the question of Robert Englund possibly being out of the picture to reprise the role has the fans really bummed and not wanting to see it. Blum's response to that is, I couldn't make him come back. I can get anyone back. I made Ellen Burst, who was 87, come back for The Exorcist. He's 75. He's young." Okay.
I like his optimism.
Yeah,
well, first, before we get into that, I just want to tee this up a little bit. So, obviously, now is the best time for a Nightmare on Elm Street film with Robert Englund because Netflix is literally doing that right now with Vecna. Because you got Robert Englund, you got the premise of A Nightmare on Elm Street put into Stranger Things. So, right now, it's kind of what everybody's thinking. Everybody sees proof in concept that this show did great. And it's still doing great. And by the time this video comes out, it should be around or right when part 2 comes out. But what we're seeing now is a lot of like acceptance that wasn't there in 2011 when the remake came out. People are just hungry for another movie, but they'd be especially hungry for one with Robert Englund back. Franny, what are your thoughts on a possible Robert Englund reignition into the franchise? Like, are you a Nightmare on Elm Street fan? Or?
Yes, for sure. And like you said, I mean, they do have proof in concept with Stranger Things. It just makes you want it more, honestly.
It's the best Nightmare on Elm Street movie they've made in years.
Yeah. Right. It's really smart to start talking about it right now, too, honestly. Like, to ride that wave.
And say what you want about Blum. I mean, that dude has changed the way we codify and understand horror movies as an aspect of making a profit, as well as staying culturally relevant. I mean, between him and A24, that's who's putting out your horror movies. And that's pretty much it.
That's been one of the big things that for a while there, it felt like you were dying for anything decent to come into the horror realm. Like, you had shit dropping like Green Inferno. And
that's a weird example.
Like,
that's an incredibly weird example.
It's literally,
bro. No, hold on, back up. You cannot use Eli Roth as an example. That doesn't make any sense. Choose something else. Because that's basically being like, this Tarantino movie was kind of wacky and stupid. Well, that can happen sometimes. No. Eli Roth was not trying to make a horror movie per se.
It's just like there was like all the Insidious movies and everything, and I know a lot of people love those. Every time I've watched any of them, I've just been like, wow, this isn't scary.
Well, Blumhouse does great horror movies too. I mean, you have, I'm not saying that, but you have like Halloween, for instance, the remakes he's been doing with that. I mean, he has proof in concept that he can make a horror movie as a Blumhouse picture, and it be even a remake of the ones from the 70s and 80s, and it'd still be successful.
And that's what I'm saying. Blumhouse has been doing great things. Like, Blumhouse and A24 have been doing amazing things, breathing new life into the horror genre, because for a long time there, like, I remember, like...
The Gallows.
Like, just a bunch of these just trash takes on horror movies that I was like, oh, okay, so... We had a great bit during the slasher times. We kind of got a revitalization with Scream, and we just kind of died out for a while. And then Blumhouse and A24 brought it back. Like, that's it.
I don't fully agree with your assessment, but I totally see your point being agreed upon by many people. A lot of people agree with you there.
To 2000s to 2010, horror was kind of
in a lot of people's opinion.
Yeah. In my personal opinion. But getting to see them like just really take the reins of horror and make almost everything that drops just so much fun, and just like it feels like horror movies are back on the table. Personally, to me.
And now they're always making money, which is the important part, because the
now
issue
they can
is
dump money into it.
Yeah, like you can't make every feature Muschietti's like It series, right? Like, you can't have them be super huge blockbusters, because at the end of the day, genre film, as much as I think it's elevated and incredible, the viewing audience is always going to be split, and the people who are willing to go see a horror movie, their age is dependent. There's so many things that go into deciding whether a horror movie can make back a profit. The fact is, Blumhouse makes cheap movies with decent directors as well as A24.
And people just believe in the name too. Honestly, like we saw.
I think the name is slowly coming back to being believed. But there was a time where if you said Blumhouse, somebody would be like, "I'm not fucking going." That sounds horrible. And he's really kind of turned the tide with that and completely changed it. And that's something that I'm super excited for. But Frani, you hear some of this about, him coming back and everything.
Yeah.
And the franchises in general that Blumhouse has been working with. If you were going to pick like a horror franchise from your past to come out through a Blumhouse thing, what would you want it to be?
What do you mean?
Like, is there a horror franchise that isn't currently being worked on that you want them to make a movie of?
I don't want them to redo any horror franchises.
You just want it to be all new
stuff.
So are you in favor of them doing this Nightmare on Elm Street movie?
Well, I mean...
That's what I'm saying, because I know you hate remakes.
I guess I'm just contradicting myself there.
Yeah.
I feel like Nightmare on Elm Street is something that can always be remade because it is an undying concept in a way. Like, he's not real, like he's real, but he's not real. He like lives on through the people he's traumatized, I guess, or like through traumatized people. So I could see that like staying. I feel like Scream remakes always kind of work too for the same thing. It's like the concept. It's not like the same killer every time, But I do want to see some new stuff.
Yeah.
And I want to see some new stuff that's good too. Like we were at the theater or watching TV or something, and we saw a commercial for like a smile.
People are actually really psyched about that movie. I'm not one necessarily, but I've been proven wrong before.
It looks fucking stupid. Like, or at least they told us nothing in the trailer.
I love how Vitake's always like a little PG. Like, I don't know if I'm gonna like it. You're like, that shit's dumb.
It looked.
I've not seen anything about Smile, but like I remember, like I do like when they're like bringing in new IPs, stuff like Blackburn, like just being able to like not.
Do you mean Brightburn?
Brightburn.
Blackburn's the guy who was on this podcast a couple weeks ago.
One thing I always like the Paranormal Activity movies, but I feel like those aren't like.
See, that's the type of movies that I was talking shit about.
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
I was like,
I love those. I don't
Paranormal
care.
Activity. That first one, like they're like, this is based on true events. Hey, have you guys seen our alternate ending? You can't have an alternate ending on something that's a true event.
I don't know if they've outright said it's based on true events.
That's how they spun the first one.
I know, but I'm talking about like in the actual concept of the movie, they're saying it's based on true events fictionally. Like the entire piece is entirely fiction, right? But I get what you're saying. You didn't like the marketing. It's fine. We're not here to talk about Paranormal Activity. I'm not here to defend it either. What I am going to say, and this is one of the last things I want to say, so if you guys want to add something, that's fine. I think that right now is a great time to play on people's nostalgia for reasons of Scream doing very well, for reasons of the Halloween franchise doing really well. Top Gun. I mean, just pictures that have IPs that maybe have been kind of ignored for a while might reinvigorate interest. Unlike how we have all these IPs now that have been going on for like the past 15 years nonstop, nothing but movies. There's been such a long break now. I mean, 2011's Nightmare on Elm Street with Jackie Earl Hickey. I mean, do people even talk about that movie anymore? Would he even ever be considered to do a sequel?
I haven't seen a Nightmare on Elm Street movie since Freddy v. Jason.
Yeah, there's one from 2011. I don't want to get in. I'm not going to talk about it. But my point is, do you guys think this can only work, though, if Robert Englund comes back? Because it failed with a different person.
I don't think that it can only work if he comes back, but I think that it will be super great to have him back. It's one of those things where, again, it's playing off the nostalgia, so I do want to see him in it in some sort of capacity.
I think that the film franchise won't live if they always rely on Robert Englund. Yeah. I think it's time to move on. It's time to get somebody else. It's time to get somebody with charisma, maybe somebody who can really do the part. I mean, when they gave it to Bill Skarsgård to do Pennywise, nobody was down for that. Everybody was like, oh my God, Tim Curry all the way, blah, blah, blah. Fucking... Who cares about Bill Skarsgård? He's weird. Nobody was excited for it. Nobody found him scary. Dude, he's a great Pennywise.
Yeah, he is great in that role.
And so that's really what I'm just looking for is I want another Nightmare on Elm Street movie. Don't get me wrong, but like Robert Englund 75. Okay, you can't do
Even
the
if
franchise.
he does this one, I don't know how many more he can.
And then there's no
will be
chance
willing
of a more of a franchise, you know. And
Exactly.
like I want horror movies to live.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan. I mean, I got a freaking tapestry right behind you guys. Like I'm a huge horror fan. I'm a huge fan of the big three. But I don't need to play by Robert Englund the same way. I don't need Nick Castle to play, you know, Michael Myers. I think we can move on. But anyway, is there anything else you guys wanted to add to that, or guys?
I agree with you.
Guys, are you excited about a prospect of another Nightmare on Elm Street movie? Are you more excited about other new slashers coming, like the new Texas Chainsaw 2 for Netflix? Like, are there things that you're hyped for in the horror world? Let us know down below if there's any stories about it you want us to cover, and let us know all of your thoughts there as well. And make sure to like and subscribe. All right, peace out.